Have you ever had to choose between everything you knew and a God you barely understood? There was a woman in the Bible who made that exact choice. A foreigner, an outsider, a Moabite woman who had every reason to walk away from the God of Israel. Yet her decision not only changed her life, it set in motion events that would echo through all of history. Her name was Ruth. And today, you'll discover how a widow from an enemy nation became the great-grandmother of King David and an ancestor of Jesus Christ himself. But here's what makes this story truly shocking. Ruth wasn't supposed to be in this story at all. According to God's law, Moabites were forbidden from entering the assembly of Israel, even to the 10th generation. They were the enemy, the outsiders. Yet God chose her, a Moabite woman, to be part of the most important bloodline in human history. This isn't just another Bible story. This is about a woman who chose faith over fear, loyalty over comfort, and love over survival. A woman who left absolutely everything, risking her life on a God she had only heard about. But there's something even deeper here. Something that will only be revealed at the end. A secret about why God orchestrated every detail of Ruth's journey, placing her in exactly the right place at exactly the right time to fulfill a purpose she couldn't have imagined. Get ready to meet Ruth, the woman who left everything for a God she was never supposed to know. The story begins not in triumph, but in tragedy. In the days when judges ruled Israel, there was chaos. Moral darkness covered the land. And then, a physical famine struck Judah. Food disappeared, crops failed, starvation became real. In Bethlehem, which ironically means house of bread, there was no bread. Can you imagine that? A man named Elimelech lived there with his wife Naomi and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. The famine grew so severe that Elimelech made a shocking decision. He would take his family away from the promised land to Moab. Now listen carefully. Moab was Israel's ancient enemy. The Moabites were descendants of Lot's incestuous relationship with his daughter. They had opposed Israel in the wilderness, hired Balaam to curse God's people, and led Israelite men into sexual immorality. The law was clear. No Moabite could enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. Yet Elimelech chose to go there. He was leaving the land God had promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, taking his family to live among people who worshipped Chemosh, a god who demanded child sacrifice. Perhaps he thought it was temporary. Perhaps he believed the survival justified the compromise. The Bible doesn't tell us his reasoning, but it does tell us what happened next. Elimelech died in Moab, far from home, far from the promised land. His decision to seek security outside God's land ended with his death in a foreign country. And here's where the tragedy deepens. Now Naomi faced an impossible situation. A widow in a foreign land with 2 sons to raise. No husband to protect her. Completely vulnerable in an enemy nation. But her sons grew up and married Moabite women. One married Orpah, the other married Ruth. For about 10 years, they lived in Moab. Perhaps Naomi taught her daughters-in-law about the God of Israel during those years. The Bible doesn't give us details, but we can imagine a Hebrew mother trying to maintain her faith while living among people who worshipped demons disguised as gods. Then disaster struck again. Both Mahlon and Chilion died. The Bible doesn't explain how or why. It simply records the devastating fact. 3 widows were left behind: Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth. No husbands, no sons, no security, no future. Widows in the ancient world were among the most vulnerable people in society. No inheritance rights, no way to earn money, no protection. They depended entirely on the mercy of male relatives, and Naomi had no male relatives in Moab. She was completely alone, except for 2 foreign daughters-in-law who had their own families to return to. Then Naomi heard news that changed everything. God had visited his people. The famine was over. There was food again in the house of bread. Naomi made her decision. She would return home. But what about Ruth and Orpah? The 3 women began the journey back to Judah together. 3 widows walking the long, dangerous road from Moab to Bethlehem. But somewhere along that road, Naomi stopped. She turned to her daughters-in-law. "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud, all 3 of them standing on that road, weeping together. Both Orpah and Ruth protested. "No," they insisted. "We will go with you to your people." But Naomi pressed harder. "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I had a husband tonight and gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? No, my daughters." And then she said something that breaks your heart. "It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." This is the cry of a woman who believes God has cursed her. She had left Bethlehem full, with a husband and 2 sons. Now she was returning empty. At this, they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. The Bible doesn't condemn Orpah for this choice. She did what was reasonable, what was expected. She returned to her people and her gods. Orpah made the logical choice. But Ruth was about to do something that defied all logic. Ruth clung to Naomi. The Hebrew word is intense. It means to be glued together. The same word used in Genesis, describing how a man clings to his wife in marriage. This was covenant commitment. This was a life or death choice. Naomi urged her again. "Look, your sister-in-law is going back. Go back with her. It makes sense. You're young. You can start over." But then Ruth spoke. Words that have echoed through history. "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." Do you see what just happened? Ruth invoked the name of Yahweh, the covenant name of the God of Israel. She was making a vow before the God she was choosing to serve. She was burning every bridge, cutting off every escape route, committing herself absolutely. Ruth was choosing to leave everything: her homeland, her family, her culture, her gods, any chance of remarrying among her own people. She was choosing poverty over potential security. She was choosing an old, bitter widow over her own mother. She was choosing a God she had only heard about over the gods she had grown up worshiping. Why would anyone make this choice? The Bible doesn't tell us explicitly, but it's likely that during those 10 years, Ruth had watched Naomi. She had seen a faith that didn't crumble in tragedy. She had heard stories of a God who was utterly different from the demonic gods of Moab. She had come to believe that this God was real, that he was good, and that knowing him was worth any price. Ruth had made her choice, and Naomi, seeing that Ruth's mind was made up, said no more. The 2 women continued to Bethlehem together. When they arrived, the whole town was stirred. The women of Bethlehem came out. "Can this be Naomi? Is this really the woman who left here with a husband and 2 sons?" But Naomi's response stopped them cold. "Don't call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. The Lord has afflicted me." This is a woman who felt abandoned by God, who believed he had turned against her. But here's what Naomi couldn't see yet. Standing right beside her was living proof that God had not abandoned her at all. Ruth, the Moabite, had come with her, a woman who would become God's instrument of redemption. The Bible notes the timing. They arrived at the beginning of the barley harvest. In God's economy, nothing is coincidental. The timing was perfect. But let's be honest about their situation. Ruth and Naomi had no food, no money, no male relative to provide for them. They were destitute, desperate, facing starvation. What were they going to do? God had made provision in his law for exactly this situation. When Israelites harvested their fields, they should not reap to the very edges. They should leave the corners uncut. The leftovers belonged to the poor, the foreigners, the widows, and the orphans. This was called gleaning, backbreaking work, following behind the harvesters all day in the scorching sun. The lowest form of labor, reserved for the most desperate people in society. But it was survival. It was God's provision for the vulnerable. Ruth said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." Notice her humility. Let me go, not you. And notice her wisdom. She knew she would need permission. She knew she was a foreigner and might be rejected. So Ruth went out, a Moabite woman, a foreigner, a widow, walking into the fields of Bethlehem, hoping someone would let her pick up scraps. And then the Bible says something that seems casual, but is actually the hinge of the entire story. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. As it turned out. But this was no accident. This was divine providence. This was the invisible hand of God, orchestrating circumstances. Ruth had no idea whose field this was. But God knew. God was guiding her steps to exactly the right place. Boaz was a relative of Elimelech, Naomi's dead husband, a man of standing, wealthy, influential, and respected. He was also, according to Matthew's Gospel, a son of Rahab, that Rahab, the prostitute who trusted in the God of Israel. Boaz himself had a Gentile mother. Do you see what God is doing? He's connecting people across impossible boundaries. God was already writing a story that shattered human categories. But Ruth didn't know any of this yet. She just needed to eat. When Boaz arrived at his field that morning, he greeted his workers with a blessing. "The Lord be with you." And they called back, "The Lord bless you." This reveals Boaz's character. He was a man of faith who treated people with dignity. Then Boaz noticed someone he didn't recognize, a young woman gleaning behind his harvesters. He asked his foreman, "Who does that young woman belong to?" "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi." Notice that. She's the Moabite. Not her name first. Her foreign status. Everyone knew exactly who she was. The foreigner. The outsider. But then the foreman added, "She said, 'Please let me glean.' She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now, except for a short rest." Ruth had asked permission. She was humble and respectful. She was a hard worker, laboring from morning until now with barely any rest. Boaz was impressed, so he did something remarkable. He went directly to Ruth. "My daughter, listen to me." He called her daughter, not foreigner, not Moabite. Daughter. "Don't go and glean in another field. Stay here with the women who work for me. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars." This was extraordinary generosity. Boaz was protecting her, providing for her, treating her like she belonged. Ruth fell at his feet. "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" And Boaz's answer reveals that he knew exactly who she was. "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. How you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Listen to those words. Under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Boaz recognized that Ruth was trusting in Yahweh. She had made a choice of faith. At mealtime, Boaz invited Ruth to eat with him and his workers. He offered her roasted grain. She ate until she was satisfied and had some left over. This was hospitality. This was inclusion. This was treating a foreigner like family. When Ruth went back to gleaning, Boaz pulled his workers aside. "Let her gather among the sheaves. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up." Boaz wasn't just allowing Ruth to survive. He was blessing her abundantly. He was making sure she would have more than enough. That evening, when Ruth threshed the barley she had gathered, it amounted to about an ephah. That's approximately 22 liters. For one day of gleaning, this was an astonishing amount. When Ruth came home carrying all this grain, Naomi was stunned. "Where did you glean today? Blessed be the man who took notice of you," Ruth told her. The name of the man is Boaz. And Naomi's response reveals that suddenly she saw hope. "The Lord bless him. He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." Did you catch that? Naomi, who had just been calling herself Mara and saying God had afflicted her, now praised God for his kindness. Hope was beginning to dawn. Then Naomi said something crucial. "That man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers." The Hebrew word is goel, a kinsman who could redeem. And this changes everything. According to God's law, if a man died without children, his nearest male relative had both the right and the responsibility to step in. He would marry the widow. He would raise up children in the dead man's name. He would preserve the family line. He would buy back what was lost. But he didn't have to do it. It required sacrifice. Any children born would be considered the children of the dead man, not his own. He would be spending his own money to raise someone else's children. A redeemer had to be willing. He had to choose to pay the price. Boaz was such a relative. And suddenly, Ruth's future looked very different. Ruth continued to glean in Boaz's fields throughout the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, about 3 months. Day after day, Boaz showed her consistent kindness, but he made no move toward marriage. Why not? It's likely there was another relative who had the first right, and Boaz knew it. Or he may have felt uncertain about pursuing a younger woman, or he was waiting for the right moment. But Naomi, watching all this unfold, decided it was time to take action. When the harvest was finished, there would be a celebration at the threshing floor, and Naomi had a plan. She gave Ruth specific instructions. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know you are there until he is finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. Now, before you misunderstand this, let me be clear. Ruth was not seducing Boaz. This was following a symbolic custom. By lying at his feet and uncovering them, Ruth was placing herself under his authority and asking him to spread his covering over her. She was asking him to be her redeemer, to marry her, This took incredible courage. Ruth was risking rejection, risking her reputation. But she trusted Naomi, and she trusted God. Ruth did exactly as Naomi instructed. In the middle of the night, Boaz woke up startled to find a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" "I am your servant Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." She was asking him to cover her, to protect her, to redeem her, to marry her. Boaz's response reveals his character. "The Lord bless you, my daughter. This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor." Boaz recognized that Ruth could have pursued a younger husband, but she chose to honor the law of redemption. She chose to preserve Naomi's family line, even though it meant marrying an older man. "And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. I will do it. I will redeem you. I will marry you. Don't be afraid." But then Boaz said something crucial. "Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty, good. Let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it." Boaz made an oath. "If the other man refuses, I will redeem you. I promise." Just before dawn, Boaz sent Ruth home. But he didn't send her home empty-handed. He measured out 6 measures of barley and placed it on her. Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Do you hear the echo? Naomi had said she came back from Moab empty. Now Boaz was making sure she wouldn't be empty. He was already acting as a redeemer. Naomi's response shows her wisdom. "Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today." True to Naomi's prediction, Boaz went to work immediately. He went to the town gate, where all legal matters were decided. And he waited. Sure enough, the other guardian came by. The Bible doesn't give us this man's name. He's called only so-and-so in Hebrew. Some scholars suggest this deliberate namelessness indicates his unworthiness to be remembered. Boaz called him over and gathered 10 elders as official witnesses. Everything would be done properly, legally, publicly. Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line. Notice Boaz's wisdom. He started with the land. Just the land. The man's response was immediate. I will redeem it. Of course he would. This was a good deal. But then Boaz dropped the crucial detail. On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. The land comes with a widow, a Moabite widow, and any children born will be considered the children of her first husband, not yours. The man's response changed completely. Then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it. He was willing to profit, but he was not willing to sacrifice. He wanted blessing without cost. He would redeem property, but not people. His selfishness is contrasted sharply with Boaz's selfless love, and this nameless man fades from history. The man took off his sandal and handed it to Boaz, the custom for finalizing such transactions. Then Boaz made a public declaration. Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Chilion, and Mahlon. I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. Today you are witnesses. Notice what Boaz did. He made Ruth's identity clear. Ruth the Moabite. He didn't hide it. He declared it publicly. And here's where something beautiful happened. The elders and all the people responded with a blessing that would prove prophetic. We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. They mentioned Tamar. Why? Because Tamar, like Ruth, was a foreigner who came into the line of Judah through unusual circumstances. Because Tamar, like Ruth, became part of the messianic line through God's sovereign grace. The people were recognizing that God works through unexpected people in unexpected ways. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. The Bible states it simply. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. After years of widowhood, after leaving everything, after working in the fields as a poor gleaner, Ruth had a husband and a child. God had redeemed her completely. But this wasn't just about Ruth's personal blessing. Something far bigger was happening. When the women came to celebrate with Naomi, their words reveal what God had done. Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Better than 7 sons. 7 was the number of perfection. But these women were saying that Ruth, a Moabite daughter-in-law, was worth more than 7 Hebrew sons. Remember, this is Naomi who had returned saying, "Call me Mara, because God has made my life bitter. I went away full and came back empty." But she didn't come back empty. Ruth came with her, and Ruth was better than 7 sons. God had been providing all along. Naomi just couldn't see it through her grief. Naomi took the child in her arms. She became his nurse, and the women gave him a name. They said, "Naomi has a son," and they named him Obed. Obed means servant or worshiper. This child would grow up to serve the Lord. His son would be Jesse, and Jesse's son would be David, the greatest king Israel would ever know, the one through whose line the Messiah would come. And that's why this story matters. That's why it's in the Bible. That's why we're still talking about Ruth thousands of years later. Here's the secret I promised you at the beginning. And when you see it, everything changes. Ruth was living out the gospel itself. Picture her situation. A Gentile outside God's covenant people, poor, unable to save herself, a widow with no hope. And here's the crucial part. A Moabite, specifically excluded from Israel's assembly by God's own law, even to the 10th generation. Think about what that means. Not 1 generation, not 5, 10 generations. Ruth was generation 1, the most excluded person imaginable. The law said she could never, ever be part of God's people. Yet God chose her to be the great-grandmother of David, an ancestor of Jesus Christ, mentioned by name in the genealogy of the Messiah. This is grace that explodes every boundary we create. But she heard about the God of Israel and chose to trust him. She left everything to come under his wings. She committed herself completely, risking everything on faith. And God provided a Redeemer willing to pay the price, who gave her a new identity, a new family, a new future. This is what Christ does for us. Every one of us is like Ruth, outsiders, foreigners to God's covenant, spiritually dead with no hope, excluded by our sin from a holy God. But God provided a Redeemer, Jesus Christ, who paid not with silver and gold, but with his blood. He clothed us in his righteousness. He became the bread of life. He died and rose again to accomplish our redemption. And like Ruth, we must choose. We must leave our old life, our old gods, our old identity. We must cling to Jesus, saying, "Where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God." We must come under his wings and trust him completely. There was another man with the right to redeem Ruth, but when he learned the cost, he refused. He wanted profit without sacrifice. He would redeem property, but not people. How many people want God's blessings without commitment? Heaven without surrender? Jesus was willing to pay everything when we had nothing to offer. He loved us when we were unlovable. He chose us when we were his enemies. And if we've been redeemed, we must extend that same grace to others. Boaz could have rejected Ruth because she was a Moabite. But he chose to see her faith, her character, her heart. How are we treating the outsiders? Are we extending grace like Boaz, or refusing like the nameless kinsman? Ruth didn't know she was gleaning in Boaz's field. From her perspective, she was just trying to survive. But God was orchestrating everything, every step, every encounter, every detail. And he's doing the same in your life right now. Your circumstances aren't random. Your struggles aren't meaningless. The place where you're struggling may become the place where you meet your Redeemer. Naomi thought God had abandoned her. She felt bitter and empty. But God had already provided Ruth. He was already leading them to Boaz. He was already writing a redemption story. Sometimes we're too close to our pain to see what God is doing. God redeems our losses. Naomi lost everything, but God gave her more than she imagined. Ruth left her homeland with nothing, yet became wife to a wealthy man and great-grandmother to a king. Their suffering was real, but God transformed it into something that blessed not only them, but all humanity. He takes our broken pieces and creates something beautiful. He takes our losses and brings gain. He takes our emptiness and fills it with his abundance. Your pain isn't wasted if you give it to God. Your losses can become testimony that points others to the Redeemer. Ruth showed hesed, steadfast covenant love to Naomi. Boaz showed hesed to Ruth, and God showed hesed to all of them. This is God's character. He is loyal, faithful, steadfast. He doesn't abandon his people. Even when we feel he's far away, he's working. This is the God Ruth chose to serve. This is the God who redeemed her. And this is the God who wants to redeem you. So what does this mean for you? Maybe you feel like an outsider, like your past disqualifies you. Ruth's story says God's grace extends to you. Your background doesn't determine your future. Your faith does. Maybe you're facing an impossible choice. Ruth chose faith over security, and God proved faithful. Maybe you're in a season of loss, feeling empty and abandoned. Naomi felt that way too, but God was working all along. Your emptiness isn't the end. It's preparation for the filling he wants to bring. Maybe you're waiting for rescue, for provision, for someone to change your circumstances. Your Redeemer has already come. Jesus Christ has already paid the price. He's already spread his covering over you. Trust him. Or maybe God is calling you to be a redeemer for someone else, to extend grace to someone different, someone struggling. Will you be like Boaz, willing to sacrifice? or like the nameless kinsman who refused. This is God's message to you today. He is the Redeemer. He is orchestrating circumstances. He is working all things for good. He is bringing beauty from ashes, and He invites you to trust Him completely, to come under His wings and find refuge. The same God who redeemed Ruth wants to redeem you. The same God who turned Naomi's bitterness into joy wants to heal your pain. Trust Him. Follow Him. Let Him be your Redeemer. He redeems. He restores. He transforms. He takes the unlikely, the outsider, the broken, and makes them part of His eternal story. He took Ruth the Moabite and made her an ancestor of the Messiah. He can take your life and use it for His glory in ways you cannot imagine. May Ruth's courage inspire your faith. May her loyalty challenge your commitment. May her trust give you strength to follow God wherever He leads. Because the same God who redeemed Ruth is ready to redeem you, and He never fails. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoy living and inspiring biblical stories, subscribe to Living Bible Stories channel so you don't miss new videos. We'd appreciate your like and comment. It really helps the channel grow.